Before we get started, unless someone in the audience objects, we'd like to ask the town clerk, Ms. Flanagan, to lead us in prayer. Seeing no objections.
Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen.
Amen. Will you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, again, I welcome everybody who's here. Rather than a roll call of members, we'll just make an announcement that Councilman Curtin is not here now. He may be joining us a little bit late. He was driving down from work. Are there any additions to the agenda?
Mayor, I have one.
Yes.
Resolution 2113, which is authorization to pursue grant funding for water system upgrades. And I'll explain that when we get to it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
You said 2113?
All right, next do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. We're a little bit behind on the minutes right now. We will be doing those at the next meeting. Are there any council announcements? I have a couple. I was at the supervisors meeting Monday. The issue of the consolidation of our dispatch with Westmoreland County, they did not take any action on it Monday night because their attorney has not gone over the MOU yet, and we're still discussing some of the costs in there. So we're still working that with Mr. Razavi, and hopefully it will be on the supervisor's agenda at their next meeting. Next we have presentations. First up is Mr. Dave Brown from the Virginia Department of Transportation.
Thank you very much. As mentioned, my name is David Brown. I'm the Residency Administrator for the Northern Neck, the Virginia Department of Transportation. This evening, I would like to make a presentation. The department is going to be undertaking a study, or is in the process of undertaking a study, of the intersection of Route 205 and Route 628. It is by the Halls Market. And one of the reasons for wanting to come here to the town of Colonial Beach to make this presentation is many of the residents go through that intersection every day on their commute to work. And therefore it has an impact to the residents of the town of Colonial Beach as well as those residents within the county of Westmoreland. And so with that, again, I appreciate the opportunity to come before the town council and getting this presentation. I presented a copy of my presentation that you're seeing here on the screen for your reference as well. So as we go through this, you'll be able to not only look on the screen, but you have the presentation there before you as well. In December of this past year, there was an accident that occurred at this intersection, and it was asked that VDOT review the intersection based upon the accident history. We did review the accident history. We looked at the types of accidents, and we looked at the type that would be susceptible to correction by a traffic signal. As I mentioned, one of the things that we are looking at this intersection is for consideration for the installation of a traffic signal. For a point of reference, In the center, you'll see Halls Market. Route 205 runs basically north-south. To the top of the page is Colonial Beach. To the bottom would be, if you're traveling, you'd be going towards Oak Grove towards Route 3. Route 628 intersects at this location. It's identified as Panoma Road on the Halls Market side and Stony Knoll on the other. In addition to looking at the current accident history, we've obtained information from the Westmoreland County Sheriff's Department, and that's going to be incorporated into our analysis. We've looked at various things right now. One of the things right now that we'll be looking at is traffic patterns through the area. We'll be doing turning movement counts and speed studies. That will be done about June of this year. The reason why we're holding off until June of this year is because of the 205 bridge project that's underway. With its closure, it affected traffic patterns in the area, and what we want is for traffic patterns to reestablish after the bridge opens. And I would like to make an announcement that the bridge is scheduled to open tomorrow. I was speaking with the area construction engineer, and he assured me that it will be open tomorrow. We anticipate around the 4 o'clock range, plus or minus. They do have some things to complete on the project itself. Anything after that will be done under traffic. But it is scheduled to open tomorrow and be about 4 o'clock. We'll be collecting vehicle speeds on 205 as well. There's concerns with regards to vehicle speeds based upon discussions with some of those concerns. So we've been collecting vehicle speeds, looking at turning movement counts. We did an assessment of the driver sight lines. That's the ability of the driver to see on the approach to the intersection. This picture right here represents if you're traveling on 205 heading towards Colonial Beach. Halls Market would be on the left, the garage will be on your right. There are flashing beacons installed. If you're traveling on 205, you'd have a flashing yellow. If you're on 628, you'd have a flashing red, and that's to supplement the existing stop signs, which is an indication of stop for 628. 205 is identified as the major road which vehicles can travel through the intersection without being required to stop at this time. This is the approach of 205 heading towards Route 3, or heading south. Halls Market is on your right, and the garage is on your left. In addition to the flashing beacons, VDOT has also previously installed these advanced warning signs. This identifies the intersection ahead, also advises motorists to watch for turning vehicles because of the driveways associated with the supermarket and the garage and the private driveways. We're advising drivers that there are turning vehicles here as well as the intersection. There's a 45-mile-per-hour advisory sign. Posted speed limit is 55, but it's recommended or suggested as you go through the intersection, you may want to travel at 45 miles per hour. This is the approach of Panoma Road, 628. As you're approaching, Halls Market is going to be on your right-hand side as you're approaching the intersection. There is a stop sign there, and we have the flashing beacons. One of the things that we've already done as a result of our preliminary work, we've replaced that stop sign with a larger stop sign to advise drivers. We will also be installing an advisory sign for stop ahead to give further notice to drivers that there is a stop condition for, that they're approaching. This, if you're sitting at the stop bar, I took this picture, I'm in my vehicle, I'm stopped at the vehicle. If I'm looking to my right, Halls Market, there on the right-hand side, this is your driver's line of sight. We looked at the intersection, it has a clear visibility with these requirements for the sight line if you're looking to the right. If you're looking towards Colonial Beach, when you're sitting at the stop sign, you've got a clear sight line there as well. This is the approach of Stony Knoll, 628. Halls Market would be directly in front of you. Again, as you're approaching the intersection, this is the view that you would see. You'd have the stop sign and the flashing red beacons as well. Sitting at the stop bar, if you're starting on looking towards the right, you're looking towards Colonial Beach. This is a driver's sight line at the intersection. If you're looking towards Route 3 or Oak Grove, this is the representation of the stop bar. Now, this is a typical representation of what a driver would see. It will vary depending upon where you stop, but from a general standpoint, this is a representation of what drivers will see at the intersection as they come to a stop. As I indicated earlier, the department is undertaking a study of the intersection to investigate the information on the traffic signal. So instead of what we want to do for the purpose tonight as well is to receive input regarding safety concerns that the town may have, as well as those in attendance to the meeting. That information will be noted and will be considered as part of the evaluation. At this time, what I'd like to do is receive any comments that the council may have regarding this particular matter, and then request that it be open to those in attendance to give them the opportunity to present their comments or concerns regarding this intersection as well.
Okay. Anybody on the council have any questions or comments?
I have a couple comments. I use that intersection at least twice a week to go play golf. And I think I heard from Larry earlier that, you know, if it was an actual 45 instead of a easily to be ignored suggested 45, that might help out a little bit if you started before the Hall's parking lot coming north, you know, and maybe a couple hundred yards going south. You know, I don't recommend changing the whole area, you know, to reduce rate of speed, but, you know, there's enough, and I've been here for 31 years, 32 years now, I guess, and, you know, there have been close calls there. I did read the study that was given earlier that you had done about the number of actual accidents, but, you know, we do have as I am now a member of the aging population, we don't see as well and react as fast as we used to. So I think that the 45 is a good idea, you know, an actual 45 going both ways. Coming from the sides, it's 25, so it's really not a big deal. At least 25 coming from the west. I'm not sure about coming from the east, but I think it's not much more than that, but it's not 25 already.
So it is both in the low speed, I don't believe it's.
It might be 35, but I know it's 25 coming from the west side. I mean, it's actually 40 when you come around the corner.
That's correct, it's 49.
And then it says, there is a 25 mile an hour because of,
I think there's the 25.
that may be a warning thing
That's
versus
advisory.
but I've never had a problem with that, personally.
Anybody else on the council have any comments?
I got a question. What would be the possibility of putting a pedestrian walkway going from Halls towards the garage, like those lines they put in the street, and then usually reduce the speed when you get to that crosswalk? It would give more, it would make it more noticeable that this is an area where people are walking around, maybe as a caution. People tend to pay more attention to those types of things.
Typically, when they have, there would be assessment of pedestrian movement going through the intersection. And if I recall, there's handicap ramps there as well, so we want to make a combination for the handicap ramps, but typically also you don't want sidewalks for the receiving pedestrians. I'm not aware of a heavy pedestrian movement through there, but I can identify that.
Yeah, I'm not saying there is a heavy pedestrian movement. It just would be, just to amplify the attention that people would give to that area.
Mr. Mayor?
I think, Ms. Goforth. has a
Did
question.
someone have a question first? We might more. Go ahead.
Forgive my stupidity, but what's the difference between a regular 45-mile-an-hour stop sign and the sign that you showed us in the slide? How do I know this is just suggested?
If it, for the regulatory sign, it's a white background with a black letter.
Okay,
That's a regulatory enforcement, as opposed to speeding. Whereas the yellow background, that's an advisory with a black letter.
I did not know that, thank you. Okay.
Anybody else?
Along the same lines as Mr. Seaver, I haven't been here 31 years, but I've been here 7, and I've gone through that intersection a lot in the last 4 months. I've been using Pomona Road and Cedar Hill as my detour, even though I was advised not to, but it does save a lot of mileage. I don't know. I don't believe that a stoplight is going to prevent any accidents. We have a stop sign already. We got a flashing light. The people that are going to heed the warnings are going to heed these as much as they would an actual stoplight. That's my belief. I haven't had any near accidents. I haven't seen any. I know that there have been some, but I just don't know that it justifies a stoplight.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards, had a question?
Mr. Brown, due to one lady's almost fatality at that intersection, has brought a lot of light to that intersection, of course, and I know when something like that happens, a little more scrutiny's coming to that area. My question is, what is it going to take for either the county of Westmoreland and the town of Colonial Beach to try, Wanda don't want it, but honestly, that's okay. That's not my opinion. But to have a traffic light there, and it's not a bad idea, because 55 miles an hour, and we got a grocery store, you got Diatley's there, and you could have children all of a sudden running out. Of course, they're going to be behind the traffic light. But what is it going to take to convince you to get that traffic light there? Do a letter from council or from the county of Westmoreland to help you out?
Well, that's one of the purpose, or one of the reasons for being here this evening, is to get your comments for consideration. We also look at the what's called a warrant analysis, and part of it is looking at the conditions that are there. I mentioned that we look at the site distances, we look at the way the road is laid out, we look at the accident history, we look at the speeds, we look at delays that are being, all those are factored in and are and signals based upon meeting warrants, and there's different criteria for the warrants, either traffic volumes, accidents, and those again correctable accidents by the installation of the traffic signal. So we take all that into consideration, we look at that, and it's based upon that criteria that we evaluate and make a determination on whether a traffic signal is warranted for installation or not.
Mr. Brown, I have been in this area off and on my whole life, and I remember when the flashing light went up, and it did, for a while, stop the major accidents. I personally am against another traffic light there. I think we ought to reduce the speed limit and maybe make, I don't know, encourage our county sheriff to sit there and write a few tickets. If you come across the Harry Nice Bridge, everybody that comes across that bridge knows they better slow down to 25 miles an hour or they're going to get a ticket. If we could enforce this 45 or even a 35 mile an hour limit, if you would, I think that would better serve the citizens than an actual stoplight.
Jim?
Mr. Brown, one question. On a traffic light, what's the actual cost of replacing a traffic light versus a flashing light? You have basically most of the structure there. I'm trying to identify what is the difficulty of just changing out the light, the flashing light to a traffic light, and is it the cost or the inconvenience?
Well, in review of this particular location, it would have to be assessed to make sure that it's structurally sound enough, because when you add the traffic signal heads, they are heavier and larger, they have more wires associated, so you've got what is the physical load or the weight of that device. So it would have to be assessed and analyzed by a structural engineer to ensure that it would meet the requirement. If it did not, then the signal would have to be designed. But that would be part of the design of the signal at that location. I can't give you an answer in regards to that. That hasn't been evaluated right now. But if we look at a traffic signal with mast arms, you're somewhere in the neighborhood of about between 250 to 300,000, if I recall the numbers correctly. And that's a metal, those are the metal mast arm poles with the signals on them. But it all depends upon the design, and the design is what affects the cost.
So you couldn't just retrofit the current existing structure?
I do not have an answer for that, because again,
It'd be interesting to know if that was a possibility, because I think the amount of time and effort and manpower you spend on doing the study would almost come to the cost of replacing the traffic light. It'd be like switch it in, switch it out, if that's the case. If it means requiring more infrastructure, stronger poles and things like that, and upping the cost, it still probably would come close to it, the amount of man-hour and time that you'd be putting into it, and the number of people that would be involved, their time and energy and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just easy to do it. I know it would be an inconvenience to some people, but I think it would be viewed as a safety factor for a lot of people. You know, people who have children, elderly people, I think they like the idea of that stoplight to stop. It gives them a chance to pause and think about what's going on. You know, if your kid's screaming in the back, or if you're elderly, you might not have the attention span. It gives you an opportunity to make yourself more aware of your surroundings. And everybody's taking turns when they come through that section. So I think it'd be wise.
Yeah, if the traffic signal meets warrants and the signal, that the infrastructure there right now could accommodate it, certainly it would be a cost-effective measure to do that. And I would again say that they would be looking at that as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I do, Mr. Brown.
The three, I know of three, personally know people involved in 3 accidents inside the town of Colonial Beach. They were all caused by people running a stop sign. You cannot legislate against stupidity. You know, if somebody's got, if they're texting, you know, or they're just ignoring the speed limit sign, that lady's husband over there got his truck knocked over, right? You know, because some kid ran through a stop sign, hitting broadside, and rolled his truck over. There's one right here at 7-Eleven, which is a major intersection inside town of Colonial Beach. You know, where some clown ran through the stop signs and sideswiped somebody else. I mean, you can spend as much money as you want, we still cannot legislate stupidity. Okay? There's very, very little, if any, foot traffic at that light, across that road. I was sitting here trying to think of one time, if any, I've ever seen anybody walk across that street, either from Halls to the garage, or vice versa. There's just not a need. People at Halls, if they have to go to the garage, they take their car with them, so they're driving. I guess there's a possibility you could drop your car off and walk over to Halls and walk across the day. But personally, I can't remember ever seeing anybody walk across that street. You know, you have to look at the amount of time taken from people waiting for a red light when there's absolutely nobody coming. And of course, one way to ameliorate that situation is to put in the trips. And instead of now $250,000, you're at $400,000. I'd be willing to bet you a significant amount of money that the existing poles will not handle stoplights, which are usually put up doubles, because if one dies, you gotta have the other one. So I really think you're probably talking a significant amount of change. And my experience is in the state of Virginia, because I saw this at the intersection of 218 and 301. Somebody gets killed, the stoplight goes on. That's one of their analysis tools. And unless it's a really severe traffic situation, which I don't think this is, if it's a semi-rural area, that's when it happens. I worked for Macon, that covered with blood. People got killed that. And then the light went off a couple of minutes later.
My question actually was almost asked by Mr. Seaver. I was going to ask if your study would determine whether we needed a light that was going to be activated by traffic. I don't know whether it's a trip or what, because at certain hours, there's very little traffic there. And does that mean that anyone going on 205 that's not turning, we still have to stop? Again, it is a delay with gas prices being what they are. On the same note, he's mentioned 218 and 205, which is probably a more dangerous intersection in my opinion. I've seen a lot more accidents there. I don't know if anyone's been killed there, but it's just not getting the publicity that this one is. Thank you.
In regard to the inquiry and the comment regarding activation, the signals would be, have vehicle detectors. My estimate that I indicated would include the vehicle detection system that's associated with the traffic signal. And it could be either the type that is in the pavement, or they also have a camera detection, which based upon imagery and disruption of pixels, it notifies the signal if there's a vehicle there. So it would include vehicle detection.
And that's a normal procedure, not just special for this, okay?
Right, that's a standard.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the council?
Oh, I'm glad I got here in time. From my viewpoint, when I growing up around here, and particular experience I had when I was just learning to drive, is that there's a lot of near misses there, and that's what I see. And I believe there was a conversation at the Board of Supervisors meeting. It was reported in the, I believe, in somewhere, that a discussion was had about, among other things, reduction of the speed limit from a suggested speed with the orange and black signs to a actual reduction of the speed limit, and installation of rumble strips, things of that nature, as a way to slow people down and get their attention. I don't know if that's something that has been considered as part of this.
I commented earlier, sir, that we will be doing a speed study as part of this evaluation, so we'll be looking at what the speeds and traffic volumes are on 205. We'll be performing turning movement counts as well at the intersection. Part of doing the speed study will also forward the information to the sheriff's office to let them have the information so they know what the vehicle speeds are, what time, so it may be a matter for them to consider for enforcement as well.
The thing I've seen with my own eyes is just a lot of near misses, people either coming out from the sides or left turns across traffic, and they don't make contact, but it's pretty daggone close, and that's something it seems like it's just way too frequent, and every so often they meet, and that's when we read about it. And that's been my experience. I was actually involved in one while I was a student driver, and that's why it's kind of ingrained in my head, you know, and it's something I'll never forget.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the council? Okay, seeing none at this time, I'd like to ask if anybody in the audience would like to comment or have any questions. Yes, Mr. Roberson.
At board meeting, some of us were like you, did not realize that there's a difference between a yellow sign and a white and black sign. I can't believe somebody would be flying through there at 55 miles an hour as bad as that intersection is, but you don't even get a ticket. So we strongly suggested that be lowered while he's doing his study. Maybe we can get it lowered, and that'll help that intersection out. I always thought it was 45 myself, but
Right.
apparently we're wrong.
It would be the way I understand the law, it would be a factor in an accident, but it's not something that you can get a summons for if you just, you know.
And we're waiting for the study to be completed tonight, and they're also going to, in the summertime, you're going to do a little bit in there too. Once the bridge is open, and then we'll get summer traffic back and forth and get an idea of what's going on out there too, which would be normal. Right now, it's not so normal with that bridge shut, but we'll find out.
Through.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Anybody else in the audience have any questions or comments? With that, I want to thank you, Mr. Brown, for the presentation.
I'm sorry, I was delayed. I have a quick question. I understand that this intersection is in the Westmoreland County, not in Colonial Beach.
That is correct.
And my question is, setting aside your analysis, when it comes to Colonial Beach Town Council versus Westmoreland supervisors, are you going to give just as much credence to both entities, or are you going to pay more attention to Colonial Beach as far as their recommendations?
I'm listening.
I'm giving the same support.
No.
Purpose of having the meeting here, as well as at the Board of Supervisors meeting, was to gain input from all.
No, thank you.
Okay, any other?
I got one other thing. If you're coming into Colonial Beach, there's a reduced speed ahead sign. Then there's a sign that says something that's off the right a little bit. Then there's a big Keep Our County Clean sign, about this big, which blocks the 35-mile-an-hour speed sign, which needs to be moved. And I've been talking about this a couple of months. It needs to be moved over. My comment is that when you start putting up a lot of signs and warnings at that intersection, try to make it that the one doesn't block the other so you can see what you're supposed to do.
Okay, seeing no other comments or questions out there, I'd like to thank Mr. Brown for the presentation and for the welcome news that the bridge will be open tomorrow.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity of being here before the council this evening and the input that we received from the council and the comments that were received from the audience as well. I would also like to add that should anyone wish to provide additional comments, or if they were not able to attend this evening, that we just still have other opportunities for citizens to provide comments. They can use email, and they can send those email to the address of fredericksburginfo@v.virginia.gov. That will be FREDERICKSBURGINFO@VDOT.Virginia spelled out .gov. Another means they could contact our Citizens Call Center at 1-800-4-ROAD, and that's with 1-800-367-7623. Now, I'd like to add, now this is not only for this particular matter, but say in the event that you see something along the road, tree limb, pothole, citizens can utilize that telephone number as well to call in the matter to notify VDOT. We have a Citizens Call Center that receives that information. It creates a log. They're given a log number to which they can call in and track and go online and find out what the status is of that road. With the weather that we've had right now, we're coming out of the cold season, the warm season, and our crews are out patching potholes. That's performing various work. And we also rely a lot on our citizens to make us aware. Our crews are about, Westmoreland is a large county. The Northern Neck residency is 5 counties. And so for matters such as that, or matters concern of either speed, or if they see something wrong with the traffic signal, they see a sign leaning, they want to call it in, they can utilize that number or the email addresses as well. In addition to that, if they prefer to send a standard written letter that they want to put in writing, they can send that correspondence to the Virginia Department of Transportation, 87 Deacon Road, Communications Office, Fredericksburg, Virginia, 22405. Again, that's the Virginia Department of Transportation, 87 Deacon Road, Communications Office, Fredericksburg, Virginia, 22405. Again, I appreciate very much the opportunity to come before the council and the comments that were presented, and the citizens as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Okay, next under presentations, I'd like to ask if Supervisor Roberson has anything to convey to us from the Westmoreland County side.
First off, we'd like to thank the mayor for participating in all of our meetings. He's been the only one, I think, in 20 to 30 years that has come to almost every one, and lets us know what the town is doing. We're glad to have him do that. A couple of things, as far as the dispatching and stuff, Norm has been following some of the guidelines that you all set up. and following right along with that. I don't know if all that needs to be adhered to as tight or as what was given. My suggestion is going to be that since several of you have questions, is that we have a meeting down at the county building with the chief, the sheriff, and several of you that want to come or whatever to sit down and discuss and ask any questions so that can all be explained on how this would work with the county handling the dispatch. As I said before, when we, the town, transferred the fire and rescue down there were some bumps in the road at first, but most of that's all been ironed out, and it works fairly well. I expect a bump or two in the road if they do the police dispatching, but after a while, that'll work out too. Are you looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings right off the bat? No, that's not gonna happen. But there will be a long-term savings by doing this, and as we've said before, the mayor said before, I think it's a win-win situation for everybody involved. But I think there's still some give and take, and we ought to sit down and have a nice chat so that you all fully understand what's going on, and that we understand too, and then get down to the brass tacks and the negotiations, so we can come up with a good compromise or whatever and get this thing working. That's my suggestion on that. The second thing is, there's obviously some misunderstanding to some of this, since we have a certified gentleman in charge for erosion and things like this, that you have to have a permit for now when you're messing up the dirt in your house, around your house, or whatever. Yes, we pay county taxes, but so do county people pay county taxes. That's a permit that you have to get, just like, the best thing I can give you as an example is me. If I'm going to build a new house, you all shouldn't be paying for my permit to build my house. I should be paying that. And part of that permit is going to be soil erosion and stuff like that. Part of it's going to be for electric, building, and all of that. So the individual's the one that has to pay for that. And I think Gary might agree, I don't know, permits and stuff don't even cover, we try to cover half the cost of the department on permits. Does that sound about right, Gary, or?
That's the goal.
That's the goal, half of it. So what's happening is the towns, if you have your own certified person, you're gonna pay, the town's gonna pay half of that. I've always been against anything that we duplicate services that the county already provides. And that would be one of them. But that's up to you if you wanna get your own certified guy and pay him. Even the building inspection, I've said let the county handle it, we already have them on board and ready to go. Now, to us citizens in here, that means we gotta drive Montrose, fill out the permit, and turn it in. And we won't have, as I said before, a lot of people were used to calling up saying, I got concrete coming at 3 o'clock, hurry up and get up here and inspect my place. Well, that's not gonna happen. It doesn't happen doesn't happen in King George, Stafford, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, none of that. It's a few days before they get there. And that's the way it should be run. If it goes longer than that, then yeah, you got a problem. But, so the permits, you have to have, if you're gonna do some disturbance of the land and things like this, and it has to be a certified person to handle it, and the county has that. So you'd have to go to the county and fill out the permit to do it. We're not soaking you for any extra money or anything like that. It's the same that everybody else. The poor old guy down the road at the other end of the county has to pay the same thing you all have to pay. But we're not duplicating services, so. Any questions?
Mr. Robertson, are you saying that we can use your county sediment person indefinitely?
I say yes, because you pay the taxes for it. Now, the county would like, now let's face facts here. Norm Sabi works for the county, and he's gonna look for the county's best interest, and I don't blame him for that, okay? But yes, you pay you help pay for half of that, so you're entitled to use it all the time if you want. Now, the only one you can't do is zoning, because we have our own zoning, so Gary's safe, no problem there, Gary. We have a whole lot of different zoning than the county.
There again, my ignorance, but I was under the assumption that we had to have our own sediment person. We do not?
We can share it, right?
Yeah, you can share, right?
We have to have a plan and identify who's going to enforce it, but it doesn't say the town of Colonial Beach has to hire someone dedicated to
So
that.
we don't necessarily have to hire our own sediment person.
No, you would just pay the permit and stuff like that, or
Okay.
whatever use of that guy.
Backing up a little bit on your dispatch meeting, I think that's a wonderful idea, but we're limited to only 2 council members at a time. So unless it was an advertised meeting, all of us couldn't participate.
What's wrong with us advertising?
It's nothing, I just wanted to.
We'd have to go with the sheriff. And
Yeah, if you could arrange that and advertise it, I'd be
I will
all
call
for
him
it.
first thing in the morning, and we'll see what we can do about a little get-together and that. Because I think that's the best way to do it, so everybody's there, everybody
Absolutely.
can understand what's going on, and all questions can be answered.
I have a question for you, Mr. Roberson. Are you saying, well, let me put it this way. Are you speaking for the Board of Supervisors?
No,
Or are you speaking for
I'm
yourself?
speaking for myself,
Okay.
but I also know what,
So do you believe that they would, or that Norm Rasavi would go along with this, as using the erosion and sediment person?
oh, I'm sure he'll kick and fight the whole way. Because he wants to cover, let's
But
face
how
facts,
can we convince him?
if he can get away with not covering 1/5 of the county, and we're paying for it, why wouldn't he go for that?
He works for you.
You know, yeah, he works for me, but there's 4 others too. You know,
Well, I think the citizens of Colonial Beach sometimes wonder, what services are we getting from the county? Because we do pay taxes into the
I
county.
understand that. But when the town keeps taking things away and keep adding to themselves and paying for their own thing, well,
Well,
it's,
let's
you
hope that's
know.
gonna change some.
Shame on us.
Shame on them, that's right. Now, I think in these difficult economic times that we need to look for a better way to do business. And I also think we need to coordinate more with the county.
I can't agree more. I've been trying to do that for the last several years, and we've made little inroads, but Tim will tell you, he grew up here. There's a, you know, you didn't go down to Montrose, right?
Flatiron Corner was the DMZ.
That's right. And, you know, and we looked at them just the way they looked at us. It's gonna take a while to break down those walls and get things going. Now, so, we hope we can do it.
I would think in this day and age, instead of somebody having to drive down to Montrose, they could probably go to the local office. There's gotta be somebody we can scan a permit and send it down to you guys.
Oh, we can come up with
like that
something. I mean,
fast.
I'm just saying that
I
that's,
think that we could probably
Yeah.
ameliorate the requirement for people to have to drive.
that's something that we talk about, but, you know.
We still have to go down there to get dog tags, so you would think that would, you know, that's gotta be even easier.
Well, the one question I have has to do with workload on, I don't know just to what extent the county employee workload already exists and what we would have over a period of time for that person to do to make sure that we don't create a bigger problem than we solve in terms of workload. Is that something that's been looked at? And, you know, in terms of what this guy, the county's employee already has on his plate, and whether the county employee can realistically handle what the town's gonna have for him to do on a regular basis.
Right now, with nothing going on much, yeah, you got plenty.
Yeah.
But, you know, down the road, well, example, a while back when everything was with the building inspector, Dexter was ours at the county's.
Right.
But we didn't have a whole lot for him to do, so you picked him up. You know, there may come a time when the building starts going again and we have to bring him back or somebody else.
Right.
You know, that to me is a good problem.
Yeah.
If you got a lot of building going on and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
But you have Paul Bronco as your full-time
yes,
building official.
yes, and Charlie's there too, and that, so, but Dexter was a part-time for us.
Right. As he is here.
Right, but we didn't have the workload for him anymore, so you all, it'd be nice to, like I said, to have enough work all the way around, and we had to hire more people to help us cover our load.
Yes.
Mr. Roberson, does the county use a GSI system?
You got me there.
What does that
They have
do?
a system, they're more developed than ours, because they have a person who's dedicated to do it.
So they have a full-time person that does that. Would you explain to me once again what the GSI system?
Geographic information
GIS.
system.
GIS, okay.
Computer-aided mapping system.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you, Gary.
All right, next I'd like to ask Superintendent Bean if she has anything for us.
No, thank you.
We won't be too hard on you.
Okay, that ends the presentation portion. We'll now move to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business we need to discuss? None that I know of. We'll now move to new business. The first thing we have under new business is Resolution 1813, which is a public hearing we're going to have on this resolution. It authorizes the issuance and sale of a $2,460,000 general obligation and revenue sewer system bond. I'll ask Mr. Seaver if he will give us a brief overview of this. If we read the whole resolution, it'll take about 48
Yeah,
minutes.
it's not worth it. No. Basically, this is the agreement that we have, I think actually with the United States, to borrow $2,460,000 for the sewer work that's recently started between 3rd and 14th, give or take a block here and there, which they're actually working on that. I've seen some trucks. And I want to make a comment about that too after I summarize this. It's a lot of legal stuff, and it lays out the rules and who you got to pay, and the fact that if you don't collect enough water and sewer money, they can take tax money. If you don't pay your bills, they can take the sewer plant over and rent it out to somebody or run it themselves. And it's, all the kind of things you would expect to have to sign to borrow $2 million, $2.5 million. There's a second one, which is the loan resolution where we agreed to do that. But this first one is, it's a bond, it's a review of the bond, professional, and I have read through it in detail, and there's nothing here that, I have one comment on the other piece, but there's nothing here that isn't a normal bond issue kind of thing.
Mr. Seaver, bond counsel is here if you would like to ask questions of him. Mr. Johnson's in the audience would be delighted to.
Anybody have any questions? Is that a semi-good summary of it?
Very good summation.
We'll keep him.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing on Resolution 18-13, authorizing the issuance and sale of the $2,460,000 general obligation and revenue sewer system bond. Is there anybody on the left over here that wants to comment? Anybody on the right that wants to comment? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. We will now take action on the resolution. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion's been made to accept the resolution as written and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? One thing to make it clear, I guess, we didn't really get into what this money's being used for, but it's on tremendous upgrade that we've got contracted right now.
It's not really just an upgrade. When we had an overflow 4 or 5 years ago, we were put under a consent order by the state to fix it or get closed down. If we were not in the process of fixing it, we would be paying something like $25,000 a day in fines. So this isn't something that, although it definitely needs to be done, it's no longer something we're doing because it needs to be something. It's something we have to do because we have to do it. Okay, I mean, there are, as I've mentioned before, there are sewer pipes up there that are made out of plywood. When they patched it, they stuck in plywood instead of metal. So it's a mess. And in fact, the comment I was going to make, as they're going through, they're trying to notify everybody when they're going to do stuff so it doesn't back up into people's houses. The problem is, unless there's a light snow on the ground, you really can't tell where the pipes are. We only know where they think they're supposed to be. So when they start digging in the ground to put in a new manhole, the pipe isn't necessarily where it is. So, I mean, they went through and did a lot of stuff with video cameras, but it wasn't a inch-by-inch physical survey of where the pipes are. And that's been a problem that exists in this town for 25 years, since the guy burned the plant. So that there are some times when some people may be inconvenienced more than they wanted to be because they can't do what they were supposed to that day. Now they got to go do something else. Of course, they're in business to make money, so they keep their people working. So they may be putting some stuff in line that they wouldn't have expected to before that. So if any inconvenience to anybody, the town apologizes. If you have a physical problem because of what they're doing, you probably need to contact us, and we either put it back on the company or insurance company. But anyway, that's the only discussion.
This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, and it's no longer a choice.
Right.
If we don't accept this bond issue, given that we've already signed the contract,
Bad day.
no, we won't. If you decide to do that, I quit.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Mr. Seaver, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Goforth?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Mr. Cirillo?
Aye.
Ms. Brubaker?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, the motion passes. Next on the agenda is Resolution 1913. This one actually authorizes and provides for the incurrence of indebtedness for the purpose of providing a portion of the cost of acquiring, constructing, enlarging, improving, and/or extending the sewer facility. Mr. Seaver commented a little bit on this earlier. This is actually the loan itself is what we're voting on here. So with that, I will open it up for public comment. Anybody on my left that would like to comment on this? Anybody on my right? Seeing no one, close the public comment period. We'll now take action on Resolution 1913. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The motion is to accept Resolution 1913 as written. Is there any discussion among the council?
On the second page, number 17, it has to accept the grant in the amount not to exceed blank. I think that's supposed to be $550,000.
And we also had a question about the date on there, but I think that's going to be corrected. We have the
Where you at
14th
here?
of February.
14th of February.
Yeah, we did that last month. Kathy, she would amend it and she'll pass it as amended.
Should be
She'll-
March, right?
Well, there'll be a date to be determined, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody got to cross that out. Just put it in.
550?
Yeah.
213 is okay.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Hearing none, we will now vote on it. Mr. Seaver?
Aye.
Ms. Brubaker?
Aye.
Mr. Cirillo?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Goforth?
Aye.
Mr. Curtin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Next on the agenda is Resolution 20-13. It's a small amendment to the fiscal year 2012-2013 budget. It affects the general fund and the utility fund. If I could ask the town manager if she would give us a brief overview of what this is.
Sure, I'd be delighted, Mr. Chairman. Once each quarter by our fund balance policy, the town manager and the chief financial officer were required to go through and do a general cleanup of the budget and look at items that are outstanding. One such item, for example, was a resolution passed by the town council 6-212 authorizing to execute the agreement for Land Studio, but that was not a budgeted item. At the time, our charge was to find places within the budget that we could make changes. So that was one item. The study for Whitestone is another item, the initial cost. And accounting and auditing, last year there were some issues with the accounting and auditing. We had to do additional work for OPEB for the schools that ran just about $8,000 over the actual cost of the audit. I had provided the council maybe 2 or 3 days ago a document that breaks out all of that. And there were additional funds left over after last year's audit in the school fund. There was an agreement reached to allow the school to keep $163,000 of that to cover the cost of a bus and some other items. And the additional funding is left there, and that amount can be used, $37,897 from that school fund as outlined for the 3 items. You see they will go to planning and zoning, DHCD. That's the line item where we would pay the consultants out of, the consultant for their work. Town council contingency is where we will be paying for Whitestone, and accounting and auditing is the budget item where we would refund the monies where we overspent budgeted funds to cover the audit last year. One item, too, that contributed to that was the takeover of the roads. The auditors had some extra work to do, the takeover of the road maintenance with that. We received $1,000 from Virginia Fire Programs, and that goes directly to the volunteer fire department. That's a grant for equipment. I believe they're buying a computer. We had some surplus items and items that we sell on Gov Deals, old vehicles, clunkers, in the general fund side to the tune of $7,241. That's very much needed to do repairs on the refuse truck. We have a refuse truck that's conking out. Mr. Sieber knows about that. And the next line item down is the utility fund. We had some equipment that was damaged during one of our storms. We got an insurance reimbursement and the sale of surplus goods totaling $23,618, and that will go right back into the general fund for the items that we bought to replace the burnt up items. And so that makes the total adjustment to the general fund $46,138, utility fund $23,618. I hope that that is helpful to you. I'd be delighted to take questions.
This time to hear a motion on agenda item resolution 2013.
Move it be approved as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. No nays, ayes have it. I'm going to start doing better notes on my agenda. I'm going to back up for a second. On the presentation part, I want to ask if the town manager had anything she
Oh,
wanted
no,
to bring up.
Mr. Chairman, I will bring those to the,
I think he's now Mr. Mayor again.
oh, I'm
We
sorry.
did away with it.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, my.
I will bring those
Not Fred.
I will bring those to the work session at the end of the month. Everybody seems to like that half-hour diatribe.
Okay, thank you. Chief Say, do you have anything you would like to bring up?
No, I don't have anything.
You don't have a
I am encouraged by the fact that there may be an opportunity down the road to have some of us get together and thoroughly discuss some of this merger that we've been talking about for an episode.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. I'd like to, council, I gave you all a copy of, from the Colonial Beach Police Department, cost analysis on your communication equipment I laid on your desk. I'd like to thank Chief C for bringing this up. It's just kind of his guesstimate on what it would take to, we had to redo everything in the police department, on communications. And Mr. Rosen, I look forward to that meeting down there as a public safety chairman to get involved in that. I thank you for that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thanks again, Chief. Appreciate everything for that.
Last but not least, Mr. Mitchell, since you're here, do you have anything from planning and zoning?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor? Yes, we're playing catch-up, and I forgot. I would like to bring one other item up. The builders at Monroe Point have applied to the town to get release from a bond. When they put in public improvements, the town required them to get a bond. Quite a bit of that bond has already been released. There is 195,000 left. They've asked that to be released. What I have asked the Public Works people and town manager to do is contact, there were a couple of people, citizens that were here tonight, and I talked to them earlier. But we wanted to contact the association out there, the builders, and there's a lady at the end of Elkins where the pipe work actually comes through from Monroe Point to the plant that has been complaining about the road.
Yeah.
So we're going to notify those three groups of people, and at the work session, we will have an open discussion. Because there are some of the tenants say, hey, my road's a problem. You know, there is some doubt in our mind whether it affects the roads, but we're going to do some homework, and we're going to be able to discuss that at the work session. So hopefully at 4:30, we could do that to get them in and out of here, but have all three parties present so we can make a decision on when we want to release the bond. Impartial.
What is, do we have like a breakdown available as to what's left that would be on the bond other than these potential issues? Are there specific things that?
Well, can we wait until we're?
Yeah, oh yeah.
It'll drag.
Right.
Mr. Seaver, I have a question. Is there a better way to get the word out? Could we put it on our cable TV maybe, or is that not proper?
Well, we're interested in these three groups of people coming. We're supposed to make calls to them.
Right.
Talk to the two people that were here tonight. And we're going to send them a note. And I'm hoping since the newspaper here, it might end up in the newspaper.
I spoke to the lady on Elm Street yesterday. She will be here.
Okay.
You did talk to Karen? Okay.
Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda is the resolution we added tonight, 2113. This provides for applying for grant funding for water system upgrades. And I'll let Mr. Seaver discuss that.
I've mentioned this before, with the exception of our new member. We have several problems. One of them is the Robin Grove water storage facility. A part of it has gone belly up, or water down, whatever you want to look at. We are therefore below the amount of reserve water we're supposed to have for the size of our system. In addition to that, we're required in the near future to have additional capacity that fixing this won't actually cover. We had asked, and Public Works has looked into whether or not we could reline the existing tank to save some money. The contacts they've had, it doesn't appear that there is anybody that's going to want to do that. All the people, and because we need the additional capacity, what we're thinking we may have to do is get a new tank. We have to make an application by the 15th of April. Right?
Is it April 15th, yes, correct.
Yeah. So one of the requirements for applying for the grant is that council has approved a resolution asking for the money from the state. How much we could get could be anywhere from, probably not all of it, but maybe a good half of it. And we're potentially talking about $900,000. So
That would be a complete replacement.
that one tank, there's two tanks there. This one we need a above ground tank to replace the one underground.
Right.
That's failed. That's what's for, is to ask for money to help us out.
And we have been talking with Virginia Department of Health, and it looks promising, so we want to move quickly.
We were talking about that very subject this afternoon.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Question, Mr. Seaver, is that a tank
Let
that's
me
set
make
on
a
the
motion.
ground?
Let's get it on the
I'll make a
table
motion.
first. Do I hear a motion
I'll
on
make
the
a motion to be
resolution?
approved as written.
So moved.
Second, okay. Yes, ma'am, now we have a question.
I Is
Is
that
there any questions?
a tank that's gonna sit on the ground, or is it gonna be mounted up
I
high?
think it's above ground, is what they're looking at. I mean, digging
The one
up,
on
digging up
ledge?
the old concrete tank and digging a deeper hole that goes down below the water level would probably be foolish.
And sometimes the grantor will make certain requirements or suggestions, especially in this case. They've got a vested interest in the entire system.
Yeah, we have to, and in the preliminary engineering report that was turned in many years ago, I guess it is now,
2005.
this was discussed in it, and since it was in that PPR, that's one of the requirements they have for them to give us a grant. So the engineering work has pretty much already been done in its preliminary form. So once we do this resolution, then they will look at specifics of what would need to be done, and they look at all kinds of stuff.
So this has been hanging around since 2005.
I'd probably say 1985.
Yeah, it was updated on 5.
Yeah. I mean, again, this stuff isn't new. It's just been ignored for a long, long time. It's got to the point where it breaks.
Right.
What would happen to the existing tank?
Right.
Probably fill it up. It's above ground.
So there's, we won't know for sure, but there's nothing to suggest it's, that they're going to require complete removal and restoration of that piece of land to its original state then. Because that could significantly raise the price of the whole project.
I'm going to say I don't know the answer to that question, but I would think not.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're worried about whether the new thing is acceptable to handle the water and whether it would be tied into the system properly.
And we've got enough land.
They don't care what the ground is.
We've got enough land down there and then an existing
Yes.
tract to
Yeah.
put one over by itself.
Well, they actually, I think go over top of where the one is now.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is one that's still there that's still working.
Right.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, seeing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All nays, no nays, ayes have it. Next on the agenda is citizen input. We have one person signed up, Mr. Marty Long. I would like to start with him, and then we'll see if anybody else has any comments.
Good evening.
How you doing?
I will attempt to stand since I came for the first time.
You want to move that mic over closer to you?
Yeah, that's up to you.
I'm at 15 Virginia Avenue as a part-time weekend resident. For several years now, we bought a home down there a little over 10 years ago, and previous councils I've attempted to address the issue of ownership of the boardwalk from the hotel to the Diver Tower where it terminates at Lincoln Avenue. I gave Ms. Folds before the meeting deeds. I went to the courthouse, got deeds from the old hotel, Maryland Avenue in the boardwalk, Virginia in the boardwalk, all the way down. It's interesting, up to Virginia, I saw no evidence of any ownership east of the western edge of what it calls the Cement Walk, which is the boardwalk. At Virginia, things changed a little bit, but they're stated as riparian rights, which I think makes things a little different than the owners there believe, where, for example, they went and put a private property sign on the post at the sand of the beach. If it's riparian rights, I think that's quite a bit different from outright ownership. That's something you would have to ask the town attorney about. But hopefully it saved a little time and effort on the town attorney's part by gathering those deeds, because I've been trying long enough that I figured if I went and got them, that might help get the ball rolling a bit. Earlier this week, for the many times I've contacted Ms. Folds, the drainage at the end of Virginia we know is broken. A couple of years ago they attempted to fix it with the jet truck and actually broke a pretty expensive piece of equipment that was meant to go through drains like that, and it just hit such resistance and broke off. I asked Ms. Folds in an email and told her I would ask you all tonight, working on a new budget, if you would please look at that issue as a possible item to put some funds forward, because as I understand it, you now have taken control of the roads and you have the drainage. The end of Virginia is completely broken. I don't see any fixing that except to replace the pipe that's there. That's my opinion, and what I wanted to bring to your attention on that. When I emailed Ms. Folds about, evidently we recently had a pretty bad storm, rearranged the boardwalk and beach down there, emailed her on Monday, and we had a rain event Monday night. Tuesday morning, the crew was down there getting the sand out of the way, fixing as best they could. As I indicated by email, I went and took a look that afternoon. They had cleared the drain. There's water standing in there, and I watched it for a few minutes, and there was nothing to indicate it was moving at all to get in that basin and out to the river, so it's blocked. But I've asked her if she would make copies of the deed that I provided for you all. If the questions come up, hopefully the town attorney will address it at this point, and we can get some help down there. We bought mine 10 years ago. We had a nice piece of beach and a pretty decent boardwalk. There's not much beach left now, and the boardwalk is wiping out a little bit at a time as each storm comes through. A couple other issues real quick. I think the county elected officials should have a spot back up here. He did a few years ago. Might have had something to do with somebody that sat somewhere up there. But he's elected to represent the town at the county level just like you are here, so he should have a target on him just like the rest of us.
I think he was offered that and he refused.
Yeah.
No. You offer the table. You give him a seat. And the last thing I wanted to bring to your attention, I've kind of enjoyed tonight. There's been a lot of civility and it's moved along. If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was under the last mayor and council that public comment was moved to the end of the agenda from the front. And there was a time when you not only had to sign your name, but put what it was you chose that you planned to speak about. Some of us, for different reasons, myself for medical conditions, an hour or so I can take, 2 and over, and I have to just leave. And I think it makes sense if you would consider moving citizen input back to the front of the agenda. It gives the appearance that you don't really want citizen input, and if you can talk them out and they'll leave, you don't have to listen. I just say that from having once sat on that side of the table many years ago. And if you would consider that, I would appreciate it. So those are the big items I had. Please, in the new budget, consider taking care of that drainage issue. And Ms. Folds knows my concerns over the years with the boardwalk and any help I can get with that. Other than that, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else out there that has any citizen input? Anybody on my left here? Anybody on my right? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would like to mention something, but I don't have all the details, so I'm hoping that Joyce Thor, I hate to put you on the spot, but there was a press release this week about Abby Henson. I don't remember the date. Do you recall?
March 30th, she'll be speaking at George Washington birthplace.
Do you want to stand up and tell everyone what it's about?
Hello, everybody. Joyce Thor, 100 Taylor Street. Abby Henson, I think most of you know, one of our oldest artists here in town. Her work is being displayed now at George Washington birthplace, and it'll be displayed there until May. But they've invited her to come and answer questions on March 30th from 2 to 3 o'clock. So anybody that can come and support her, we'd love to have you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Last chance here.
Mr. Mayor. Well, I just want to what's that?
You want me to mention that?
Well, Tim had something on there.
Well, I just want to mention the Virginia Downtown Development Association is going to be having their annual, what they call the Annual Awards of Excellence, and that's going to be April 4th. And the reason I bring that up is we were, correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, that's the one where we were honored, our revitalization plan was honored last year. Is that the same one, or is this something else?
I think we're going to clarify that better, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it's the
That's a
same.
different organization, but it's related to downtown revitalization.
Right, and there is the chance that they will recognize us and,
Well, we didn't submit anything.
we didn't? Okay,
I'm planning to do any additional submissions, with my fingers crossed after we get acceptance of our grant.
yeah. Which we can only hope. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Goforth.
Well, at Mr. Edwards' insistence, I'll see if I can remember the details. Saturday, when we had a meeting, I read to the council members that were here, and I haven't had time to look for it because I didn't expect to speak on it. We were invited to attend a cabbage and ham dinner that was given at the Elks. The purpose of that dinner was to give awards, and one of the awards that was given was to Pee Wee, if everyone remembers Pee Wee. They are donating a bench, and I was hoping Mitzi was here, but she could have done this much better than I can. To my surprise, the award was actually given to Mitzi Sappos and myself. We received it for Pee Wee. And does anyone here not know who Pee Wee is? What's his full name? Atwell, I think.
Lawrence Atwell.
Lawrence Atwell. And this is the only time that the Elks has given it posthumously, so it was really quite nice of them. And actually, I looked in the paper, I picked up yesterday's paper today, and there's actually a picture in there on like the second or third page. So Pee Wee will be missed, and he was loved by many. And it was very nice of the Elks to do that. So the bench is going to be over there, I think soon. I think, within a week, if it hasn't already.
Where's the bench going to be put
The
at?
Historical Society.
So across.
And I think it'll be on the porch. But I believe they were having one custom built.
Okay, Mr. Robertson.
Chamber has Tory Smith coming.
Yes.
The Grand Marshal, just making that announcement again. Some of you may not know who he is. He plays a little football for Baltimore. Super Bowl champions. He went to school here to the 5th grade. My wife taught him, but I'm so old I taught his mother.
His mother was in Terrace Redwood.
You're not that old.
Monica was.
You're not that old. You taught me. So I mean, you ain't that dang old.
Oh, now we understand more.
Yeah.
We're excited to have him in town and have him at the Grand Marshal.
And I actually heard that Pat Fitzgerald delivered him in the back of an ambulance. That may be made up, I don't know.
Wow.
Okay, seeing no one else, we will close the citizen input. Is there any reason we need to have a closed meeting? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.